Hey, welcome to the Lovelda Show, Women of Power podcast. I'm your host, Lovelda Vincenzi, and this is the show where women share their personal power tools, which I define as the tools, techniques, or strategies which have enabled their success in life and business. I ask all of my guests to be real, raw, honest, authentic, and vulnerable, dare I say. So this is a girl chat show like no other, where we really do dive into what it is to be a powerful woman, the real tools behind a woman's success. Now, if you're on this channel, do hit that subscribe button right now and hit the bell to make sure that you're notified when new shows are added. You can also subscribe to find us on Instagram, which is at Lovelda Show. You'll find all links that have been shared in the show in the show notes. And right now we're gonna hop straight over whilst I do a audio introduction before we jump into the full show. So let's get started. Hey, chicas, welcome to the Lovelda Show Women of Power podcast, the show where women share their personal power tools, the techniques, strategies, and ways of being which have enabled their success in life and business. I'm your host, Lovelda Vincenzi, an international MC and host and female speaking business coach on a mission to unleash authentic, powerful female voices onto the world. This is a girl chat show like no other. All of my guests get real, raw, and authentic whilst sharing pure gold nuggets of wisdom. In today's episode, we'll be uncovering the power tools of Daniella Blechner. Daniella is an award-winning entrepreneur, founder of Conscious Dreams Publishing, author and book journey mentor who lives in South London. Over the last 4 years, she has published over 80 books, mentored over 190 authors and aspiring authors, assisting them in transforming their powerful stories and messages into successful books. Dubbed as a class clown, in her former years, Daniella has always sought to bring joy and humour to others' lives, and she believes that humour is the best medicine in times of challenge. Her achievements include surviving lockdown alone, gaining over 400 comments on a post about what to do with cabbage during lockdown, completing the Don't Rush Challenge, living in Tanzania as a volunteer teacher whilst getting away with speaking broken Swahili, and climbing Mount Kilimanjaro and getting to the top. Daniella's conscious dream is that we get to create and live in a world that is founded on equality, love, and unity for all. So she also offers a 30-minute consultation for anyone interested in writing and publishing a book, as she believes that everyone has a story inside them and there is power in using it to positively impact others. You'll find the link to book one of these consultations in the show notes. Now, in this particular episode, we cover the underrepresented voices and the tools and techniques that you can use to get greater impact if you feel that your voice is underrepresented in any way, shape, or form. Now, listen, if you are ready to get more from sharing your expertise, use the link in the show notes below to download your free copy of my Speaker Marketing Blueprint, your guide to building speaking marketing assets that match and reflect your expertise and increase your fee, regardless of if you're brand new to speaking or ready to level up your speaking career. You'll find links to all of my special offers in the show notes. And at the time of recording this particular episode, the doors are currently open to the LinkedIn Profile Intensive program, which you can find details for in the notes, as well as any links shared by my guests during this recording. Now, P.S. If you want to make sure that you get your regular fix of this show, do make sure you hit that subscribe button to get the updates when new shows are added, and subscribe to get notifications directly into your inbox. Now, I think that is quite enough from me for now. Let's jump in and get on with the show. Hey, chicas, welcome back to the Lovelda Show Women of Power podcast. We are steamrolling through season 2. If you have not yet started following us on Instagram, what you waiting for, girl? What you waiting for? Head over to Lovelda Show at the Lovelda. No, it's not that. It's just at Lovelda Show on Instagram, and hit that follow button. If you're on YouTube right now, you just hit that subscribe button, click the bell. We're good to go. In today's show, my guest, do you know what? I've decided that we're going to get into some let's say, edgy topics today, shall I say. You know, I'm doing this show because, like I promised, I want real, raw, honest, authentic conversations. I really want us to be talking about some of those things that maybe we don't often talk about, but we might recognize as a thing. So my guest today happens to work with, she's an author herself and a book publisher, and she works a lot with underrepresented populations, in particular predominantly Black authors, but authors of all different underrepresented populations. That's the best way of putting it. And so today, what I really wanted to talk about and kind of dive into in terms of the power dynamic when you feel like you're coming from an underrepresented space. Now, before you go and jump and think, no, I'm represented, listen. You know, we feel out of place in various different ways. Sometimes it's our skin tone. Sometimes it's our gender. Sometimes it's that we're a single mom. Sometimes it's the industry that we work in. But if you've ever experienced that discomfort, shall we say, of feeling like there are very few people like me here, or very few people who understand me here, in today's episode, we are seriously going to dive into what it means to have a powerful voice when you're coming from an underrepresented space. So I am so incredibly excited to welcome my guest today, Daniella Blechner. Daniella!
Hello!
AKA Danny, just in case. So folks, if I shorten her name, it's because I know her. And I normally call her Danny, and I'm not about to mess her name up, because if you call Daniella Danielle, it's a problem.
Why have we started with that, Lovelda? But it's true, I get it all the time.
You brought it upon yourself, darling. It's all them Facebook rants.
That is true indeed. Let me just clear that up. What had happened was, before I'd even got out of bed, I know I shouldn't be checking my email in bed, I had 4 different messages, each calling me Danielle, and I realised this has to stop now because I've been allowing it for way too long.
Do you know what? It is that point, though. I think, you know, part of having a powerful voice is knowing when to say, whoa, listen here, you've crossed a line. Because sometimes I realized I used to do it. I just used to let stuff slide.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you let it slide enough times and people keep calling people, I remember people used to try and shorten my name. Shorten my name.
What did they call you? Love?
Oh no, girl, that would have been nice. They went to a letter. At one point I was V. I think it's because I said, I'm not even lying. I had some housemates who used to call me V. I said my name's Lovelda, and I think they misheard me and they thought my name started with a V. And these lazy folk, shall I say, shortened my name to V. And for whatever reason, I let it happen. And I never let people shorten my name, like ever, ever, ever. When people have said, oh, what's that short for? I've said Lovelda. It's short.
How? No, I understand totally. I remember working, because my background is teaching. I remember my leaving speech. I'd been there for 5 years, assistant head of year. And in my leaving speech was, so we're saying bye to Danielle. And then I just realised, no, it's Danielle. It's been 5 years. Come on.
How can you miss that? How can you miss it? Daniella, or if you're not sure, folks, if you reach out to her at the end of this interview, just say Danny. You keep yourself out of a hell of a lot of pain. So Danny, you are a book publisher and an author yourself. Why did you deliberately choose to work with underrepresented populations, or is that just how it ended up working out?
It was all literally organic. I didn't set out to actually become a book publisher. You know, that sounds funny. So my dream as a young kid, I remember always being asked, what do you want to do when you're older? And it was always, first I was going to be a vet, and then it was, I'm going to retire at 40 and be an author. It was never a question. I loved reading, loved literature. So I did become an author. I published 7 books before my 36th birthday. I'm 40 now. 7. I'm on 8 now. I'm 40 now. I haven't retired. So I published my first book, and I tried to do everything by route. And so the first thing I did is I bought a book called Getting Published by Harry Bingham. And it said the first step is to write a query letter, which is a 1-pager about yourself and your book, a bit of a marketing plan to get an agent. I sent this off and to lots of different agents, and I stopped writing. And then I literally waited and I waited and I waited. All the letters came in. I say all the letters, about 4 you know, great writing capability. We love this book. My first book was called Mr. Wrong. However, we're looking for somebody with more of a marketing plan or a following. And I thought, I'm an author. I just want my book published. Thank you. You know, I wasn't worried about marketing.
I didn't set out to become a marketing genius.
No, but I mean, they're asking so much more now from authors, agents are, whereas before it was, you're the writer and that's it. And so something about that rejection made me think, okay, either I can just think and say, oh, who am I to do this? And maybe I shouldn't have a voice, and, you know, or I could put myself up for more rejection or possible success. And so I did what they tell you not to do, which was to apply to all these like traditional publishing companies, the big five, like HarperCollins, Penguin, Random House, knowing full well I needed representation. So I sent off my letter with my 3 chapters, waited again, stopped writing. All the letters came in, I mean, one. And it was, you know, great writing capability, really talented, really funny. However, we don't take on unsolicited authors. And so I just thought, you know what, this book contains other women's stories. And so by hook or by crook, I need to get this out here because I know the impact these stories can have. And I know now because of the feedback that we've got. And so I published the book. It did really well. And then organically, I started to get a lot of women saying to me, how did you do this? You beat Steve Harvey's Think Like a Man, Act Like a Lady on the bestseller list.
Get out.
I did indeed, I know. And
you do not have that in your bio, by the way. We might have to just add that, girl. Hashtag nailing it.
Oh, thank you. So I got onto 3 bestseller lists and I got some really good press. I got the book into Waterstones, front window in Waterstones. So I had quite a lot of success with the book. And so I had lots of women coming to me saying, how did you do this? And I was connecting them with editors, typesetters, cover designers, people within the industry. And then I started mentoring a few, and, you know, it was a labor of love at the time because I was teaching. And then they did really well. And I thought, hold on a second. I work with young people. I love mentoring. I love working with people, love teaching, and I love literature and books. Why not fuse the two together? And since 2015, no word of a lie, I've been inundated with clients, and we work with all types of people from all over the world, men and women. But I was specifically getting a lot of submissions from Black women or women who felt they didn't have a voice or felt underrepresented. And it made me realize that there are so many extraordinary women, powerful women, which is what your podcast is about, who have, you know, everyday women who've overcome extraordinary things, who weren't getting heard, who weren't getting those traditional publishing deals, who maybe didn't know how to get themselves out there, who didn't have a platform, who weren't visible, who weren't being seen, weren't feeling heard, that just wanted to really get their stories and messages out. And so it happened organically, you know.
And do you find that having gone on the journey yourself, because the thing that you have, which, you know, many others wouldn't, is firstly, you had a huge love of literature. And so therefore you were just like, I'm getting this book out by hook and crook. And it just happened that it had so many other people's stories that it's almost as if you've taken on this responsibility to get, yeah, I can do it, no problem. And you're like, oh, heck.
Well, we did a crowdfunding campaign as well. So I had over, you know, £1,500. I mean, I had to get it done, you know.
You were like, I'm going to have to make this happen.
Yeah.
But I suppose when you're doing your book by yourself, or you're going forth at something you're not used to by yourself, where you don't understand publishing, maybe you wouldn't even know the first place to start. Perhaps it's not even that you necessarily had a love of literature, you just have a message you want to get out, but you don't know where to start. And to hear the knocks, or to hear the obstacles that people say are there, oh, you're going to have representation, you're going to have this sort of thing if you're going to be successful. Do you find that there's a commonality in the journey that you take people on who are coming in almost with this, dare I say, slightly defeated, you know, this big vision, but this small hope that it's ever going to come through to fruition?
Yeah. Oh, we've worked with a range of clients. I've worked with people who have been traditionally published before, but they've chosen a self-publishing route because they wanted control over the vision and their voice, most importantly. I've spoken with some Black women actually who have had publishing deals with traditional publishers, and these are their words, they were told, you need to change the name of this character to a more Eurocentric name. let's say Shaniqua, for example, which is clearly a Caribbean name. Let's change it to Jane. Or we need to change the main character to a white middle class character, which completely took away their own power, their own voice, their own authenticity. And so they've specifically sought out the self-publishing route, or working with a publishing company like myself to get their story out. A lot of people have absolutely no idea about publishing. They've just got this amazing story. Some are fantastic writers, some need a little bit more guidance. Everything comes out in the edit, by the way. But they quite often come into it just feeling, is this good enough? Almost in the sense that they want validation. And I think when I was applying for agents and traditional publishing companies, my light bulb moment was when I got that final no, you haven't got representation. And for me, the light bulb came on, and I realized that I wasn't waiting for a response. I was waiting for validation. You know, I was waiting for permission. I was waiting for someone to say, your story matters, you matter, your voice matters. And what I realized with a lot of the clients I work with is not so much they're looking for validation, but perhaps they don't feel like they're good enough. And that's one of the fundamental things that I think hold a lot of people back, not just in publishing their book, but in all fields, you know, setting up your business, doing that, living that dream that you've always wanted to live.
That you just said right there, it's like, I want to be validated. And it's kind of that thing that we don't want to admit is going on. I'm looking for somebody to give me that rubber stamp of approval. And when I have that, that will give me the confidence to do the thing I want to do. I have a story, and I don't know if I've told it on this show before. When I started MCing, I bumped into this guy on Twitter. I say bump into as if you could physically kind of not that you could bump into anybody nowadays in the current climate, to be fair. But I met this guy on Twitter. First other person I'd met, he's a professional MC. I thought, I'm going to have to pick his brains, aren't I? So I got in touch with him on Twitter. And I was astonished when the guy thought he'd give me the time of day to come have a coffee with me. And so I'm having this coffee chat, wanting to understand, as you do, the ropes, like, how does it work? Where does one find business? What can you charge? And this guy's kind of telling me, oh, you know, the market really tops out about 300-400 quid. You know, you can't really get much money from it. You know, so let's say if I was to convert it to like sort of US dollars, we're kind of talking about $500, right? And if I'd listened to this guy, there's no chance in hell I'd be doing what I'm doing today. No chance, because that was a ceiling based upon what he was doing and how he was showing up. Right. And I just thought, nah, I don't need this. I'm just not going to take it on board. But I share that story because often we're looking for somebody else outside of us, and to kind of give us that permission and give us that rubber stamp of validation to say what you're doing is right. You're on the right path. And sometimes we've got to learn to give it to ourselves.
100%. That's so true. It's just knowing that when I wrote Mr. Wrong, like I said, it was a collection of other women's stories, and some of those stories you've got funny dating disaster stories in there, but you've got some serious stories of overcoming abuse, overcoming horrific things. And the second half is all about the journey to self-discovery. So the power of forgiveness, the power of understanding our limiting belief systems about relationships and ourselves. And that's why I think your why is so important. Why are you doing what you're doing? What impact can you have on people with your book and with your voice and whatever it is that you're doing? And when you stay strong in that, yes, other people's opinions matter and they count to an extent, but when you're relying on outside, I was relying on people up there who I'll never even meet, the decision makers who may have just opened and thought, well, okay, not even read what I've written possibly, and I'm placing all of my trust, all of my validation, all of my worth in somebody that I'll never meet. And so I think it's so important just to be really clear about why you're doing what you're doing and just stand in that passion and purpose.
So powerful. I think there's also a point in there around your resilience to keep going, right? It's like you get that first no, or five people, 100 people are saying, no, this isn't a great idea. But and sometimes the circumstances just mean it's much more challenging. When you're telling those, it kind of breaks my heart to hear. And I don't think it's just people from ethnic backgrounds. I think, you know, if you think about publishing, and same in the music industry, they're wanting to go with something that's going to make money. That's what they're wanting to do.
Yeah.
And so therefore, in doing so, there's almost this commercialization of what a message looks like. And so if you're going to go and do something slightly different, if you're going to have names that are less recognizable or not quite so easy to say, they're going to want to support you by helping to direct the narrative in a way that's going to be more commercially viable. And I think sometimes when you're coming from a space that's quite different, when your circumstances are different, when you just cannot or will not fit the mold of what society is anticipating of you, and you're trying to do something a little bit different, then you do need to have that conviction within yourself to say it doesn't matter, because I know that if what I've got to do touches one heart, touches two hearts, if somebody's life changes, if somebody chooses to stay in this plane for longer as a result of reading what I've written, it was worth me putting it out there. So I love that as a reminder, because I'm sitting here thinking, I'm sure there's some areas in my life where I've got what I call my self-imposed glass ceiling. Nobody's giving it me. You know, I came up with that myself. Oh, it's because I'm this, it's because I'm that, it's because, you know, I don't have as much money, it's because whatever the story is, and it is a story. I think it's quite interesting to hear that. Have you had any surprising results from clients who kind of came in with one view of what they thought was possible and were kind of shocked by what they were able to do?
Oh gosh, we've got one author actually called Gosia. She's one of our first authors back in 2017, so towards the beginning. She's actually Polish, and she's amazing. She's a transformational coach, and she is phenomenal at what she does. And I'm going to share a bit of her story. I'm sure she wouldn't mind. She's dyslexic, and part of what she does is she helps people to release fear. So her book's called The Expansion Game, a powerful method to transform your fear into brilliance. And she'd come up with this technique that was helping thousands of clients. And somebody had come up to her and said, what's the name of that technique that you use with your clients? I want to include it in my book. And she thought, well, I haven't got a name for it. And then she thought, well, hold on a second, this is valid enough for someone to use in their book. Perhaps I should give it a name and actually write my own book. And she'd wanted to write this book for about 10 years. I think she was writing this book for about 10 years. She was heavily dyslexic. She teaches people how to let go of their fear, but then yet she had her own fear of criticism, fear of not being good enough. And so she worked with a book writing coach, and her book is phenomenal. And she actually got 3 #1 spots, #1 international bestseller, not just for a day, but for a sustained period of time.
Wow.
In 3 different categories. It's had the most success, and she's now developed a whole course around the expansion game and a whole brand around the expansion game. And she's just phenomenal in terms of what she's done. And she shares a story that she would never have believed, that she would have, #1, written a book, #2, given this technique a name, and now built a whole business around, you know, the expansion game. So I would say that she's been one of the most successful clients in terms of where she started and where she is now.
And I think it's a really beautiful reminder to dare to dream, huh?
Dare to dream, that's right. I like that.
Because I think sometimes
my next book.
I'll let you have it, babe. I think because I think sometimes we can kind of stop dreaming, stop just even holding like a little. You don't even need to have the hope, you know, with a dream. It's just kind of just dare to dream, dare to kind of think what could be, what's possible, how big could it get? Is there any advice that you could give to people who feel like they're from a space, an underrepresented population and under-supported? Because they're 2 different things, you know, being in an underrepresented population but having a really strong support network. It's very different to being in an underrepresented situation with a very limited support group. And I think, you know, the classic example we can think of is maybe a single mum, but, you know, but there are scenarios, maybe you've got a big business vision, but nobody's really behind you. Have you got any pearls of wisdom for people who might be experiencing that space? It was a big dream, but they just don't feel like people like them make it.
That's a really good point. Before I answer the question, to pick up what you said earlier. So an underrepresented group is not just about ethnicity or ability or disability. It's about the space that you're in. So you could be a woman, you know, a really powerful woman, you know, in the corporate world, but you're surrounded by men, you're in this boardroom where it's just men, that you're not necessarily feeling like you're being taken seriously, or perhaps that space doesn't cater towards you. So all these types of narratives are part of being underrepresented. So the first thing I would say would be to find people like you who are also in that space, because where you're in that space, there's going to be someone somewhere else who's also in that space. So find networks, find support groups where you can speak to like-minded people in the same situation as you. If you have a dream, research what it takes to follow that path. The name of my company is called Conscious Dreams Publishing, because I believe that dreams are amazing. And I remember actually I met you at Les Brown event, and I was working there, and one thing he said was, it's great to dream, it's great to like create these vision boards and have all these affirmations and intention setting, but there's one thing that's really important, and it's called WORK. That's always stuck with me. It's always stuck with me, because whilst I do believe in the law of attraction, I also believe that you can't just kind of lie in your bed and expect everything just to happen. You know, you've got to research those steps to creating your dream. So when I set up Conscious Dreams Publishing, I researched extensively the publishing industry. What does it take to set up a publishing company? What are the different routes you can go? And just educate yourself as much as possible in that particular field, and surround yourself with people who are like-minded, who are in similar positions to yourself, but also find yourself mentors as well who can help you in your chosen field.
Oh, that's so beautifully said, because I know when I first started doing business, I can tell you now who I'm able to be as a business person now and who I was 5 years ago is completely different. And some of it is just the quality of my network has completely transformed. And I'll be honest, dare I say it, I'll kind of, it's going to sound bad if I say like some of them are purchased friends. And what I mean by I don't pay for my friendship. But what I mean by that is, in investing in myself, I connected with these other individuals. So it wasn't that I kind of, you know, when I was being cheap, I had a moment, you know, I'm going to take the free stuff. And, you know, actually I found a lot of other people who were kind of playing that game. When I invested in myself, the quality of the people that then showed up in my world also shifted. And this isn't necessarily about saying go and listen, be responsible about the level of investment that you give. And you've got challenges with how to invest your money. Amazing book called Profit First. If you ever have cash flow issues in your business, get this book. I'm for real. It like transformed my business life. Great book by a guy called Mike Michalowicz. Just Google Profit First, it'll come up. I'll put it in the show notes as well. It'll be really easy to find. Fantastic book. But my point being that it kind of doesn't matter. I've lost my point. My
Self-care and investing in yourself.
Yeah, but my point being, you know, you've got to push yourself that little bit further than you're comfortable every now and then. And if you can't take the time to, you know, if all you can afford to do is do a Google search, get a book, watch YouTube videos. You know, there's so much stuff that you can consume. And if you consume it and implement it, then what happens is you start the ball rolling. And I love what you say about the quality of the people that you're around and really investing in that.
Yeah, 100%. And just off the back of what you said about investing in yourself, that links to self-care. And I think that's something that especially women maybe don't, because we're so busy looking after everyone else's interests, everyone else before ourselves. And just, it's that feeling of self-worth. Going to a workshop or going to an event, for example, you might start off with a free event, and then there's something that you know is going to really help you. And by investing in that, and I used to be one of these people that was, I'll go to the free seminar, it's like, okay, stop there. That's enough. You know, but actually if something is going to be worthwhile and it's going to help you in your development and what you want to do in your dream, then investing in that is part of that self-care as well. That's something that took me a while to learn.
And I love that you put it like that, because it's like the best gift that you can give yourself is to move things forward. And you know, you could go and buy that handbag or pair of shoes or whatever, or you can, you know, put a few pounds aside to go and get that one coaching session with somebody or something, you know, buy into that membership that'll just give you that network. Because the more if you're hearing a lot of people around you who are perpetuating a story of people like us, we don't get results, you know. I don't know why I'm talking like that. But if you surround yourself by people like that, after a while, you lose hope, right?
Yeah.
Now, I could just imagine if you were surrounded by people who told you, oh, no, you're just going to have to keep writing the letter. I don't know why you're writing all these letters, because nobody publishes authors like you.
That's the thing. I think that's why it's go back to young people as well. It's so important to not place limitations upon them. You know, as a young person, I was told, and a lot of Black children are told, you've got to work 10 times as hard. And I think in a way that's kind of really stuck with me, because I don't stop working. So
Girl, I had that message too. You're going to have to work harder than everybody else.
Oh my God.
You're going to have to show up different to everybody else.
You know, and the thing is, it's also detrimental, because it kind of sets this narrative into an innocent mind that, well, I'm behind in the game. There's no point. I'm going to just have this defeatist attitude. Whereas you look at the young people now, and they're not even really thinking that way. It's, I'm just a person, and I'm going to do really well because I want to, you know. So I think those limitations can be quite damaging as well.
I think there's a fine line between acknowledging what is, but also recognizing that even in that context, somebody always gets through, right?
Yeah.
You know, even in that context, there's always got to be a first. There's always got to be, even if there's a handful of people, there's people. And if there isn't anybody, then there's a huge opportunity for the first person who gets out there, right? Yeah. And I think sometimes we can flip that almost to want to, and we have to be aware of it in our own thoughts and in our language and in the language of those that surround us, that we can fall into this unhelpful habit of perpetuating something we don't want.
Yeah, 100%. No limits. I even hate the term, the sky's your limit. Why would you give yourself a limit? There's stuff beyond the sky.
Just keep going. What's beyond this universe? And then the next universe? How far could we go? I'm getting all animated now. I've got like arms flying and all sorts, getting all animated. What you're saying here is so incredible. And I think it's useful for people to remember. And your story and the stories of those that you support is testament of underrepresented does not mean that you aren't able to have results. It doesn't mean that it's got to be harder. It doesn't mean that it's got to be more difficult. You know, if you can align yourself with the right people, if you can get the right sort of education, and if you're prepared to do the work and have a bit of resilience about you, just don't take no for an answer. Be like Daniella, just keep going. Send another letter and kind of go, let's see how many no's I can get today. You know, just give it a go. And when that fails, just do it yourself.
Exactly. You create your own door.
You create your own door. You know, there's not one here. I've got a knife. I'll just cut through the wall. I don't know how you're going to cut through a wall with a knife, but you know what I mean.
It sounded good.
It sounded good. You get where I was going with it, people. It doesn't need to be perfect. Done is better than perfect. So I'm curious, having worked with so many people from underrepresented backgrounds and situations, I say, because some of it's a background and some of it is just a reality. You know, if you've got dyslexia or a disability or something like that, it's just there aren't many people with my condition that exist, right? Or who are in the realm of where I want to go. And especially because you work predominantly with women, what is it that you think makes a woman powerful?
Good question. What I think makes a woman powerful, if you'd asked me this 5, definitely 10 years ago, I would not have given you this answer. I think what makes a woman powerful is, I would have said being authentic, but I may not have understood what authenticity really meant. So I think what makes a woman powerful is being authentic. Now, authentic isn't just about, you know, understanding who you are and acting in integrity and knowing what your purpose is, but it's actually also being able to embrace all the good, the bad, the ugly, you know, the vulnerabilities that we have. I have been brought up as, you know, you're strong and you keep going, and if there's a problem you keep going, you endure all, you're resilient, and resilience is really important, but you also need to know when to say, I can't do it all myself. And I learned that with business. You know, I think Children are amazing. I work with children, but I think children are our best teachers. Now, I don't have children at the moment. I have my business, and my business has taught me so much about myself. And one of the biggest things it's taught me about myself is the importance of, you cannot do everything alone. You can't. You need to know when to reach out for help. You need to know when to let go of particular areas. So I have a team on the publishing side. I don't edit. We have an editors, we have typesetters, we have cover designers. That's their special skill. So I oversee all of that, I manage all of that, I get involved in all of that, but it's not my skill. Now, the entrepreneur side of it, which is the marketing, the business, the accounts, oh my gosh, find people, I don't like numbers. So unless they're in my bank, find
I like how you caveat it. Don't like numbers, but if you put the numbers in my bank account, I like them.
Good. Yeah, exactly. But find people who can support you in what you're doing. When I first published my book, Mr. Wrong, I did my book launch. I organised it I would never do this again, within, I think it was 10 days before it launched. I was lucky. I had 87 people turn up, and I had a team of people who were putting the goodie bags together, people who were taking the money, because before that, I would have done the goodie bags myself, taken the money and signed books and been here and been there and been everywhere. But I think that was a lesson for me, that when I set up my business, I knew that I needed to create a team of people who could assist me with what I'm doing, and also bounce ideas off people. Lovelda is amazing. You've been a great source of support for me as well. And I think as an entrepreneur, especially if you're a woman, surrounding yourself with women who are in the same position, because we wear so many different hats. So to have a strong network of people around you and be able to feel vulnerable enough to reach out. And I think that's what makes a woman powerful, knowing when you can't do it all yourself and knowing when to ask for help and be honest about it.
Oh, I used to call it the curse of the strong. I can do it. I got this. I mean, you're drowning.
Yeah. Oh, I got
it. You're limping along, your leg done broke. I got it. The curse of the strong. So I'm glad that you mentioned it, because I had the same curse, so I understand it. I got this, and it was almost, I would see it as a weakness for me to admit that I needed help.
Yeah.
I should be able to do this. And it wasn't until I got that, actually, if I can get other people involved, I get more done more effectively, and I get to go deeper into the bit I really love doing. I actually have the time to still love the bit of the whole process that I really love doing, because now I don't have to be burdened, and I do say it as a word, burdened, fully burdened by all of the other stuff, like doing my accounts at the last minute, because I'm not very good at doing those on time. Get yourself a great accountant. That's like rule 101. Hand it over. Mine now, they get that stuff in like months in advance. I'm feeling like a don. I'm like, my accounts are
got that ticked off the list.
I used to have an accountant, like a bookkeeper, come like the day before me accounts were due. And I remember the first time I sat on the floor, all this stuff. I haven't filed anything. Hot mess. I did a degree in accounting and financial management. So it's just, girl, it's not my thing. I can look at the numbers and I like the management reports. I'm like, send me a report and tell me what's going on, and I'll ask a lot of questions. But I don't want to be involved in the compiling of the report. It's not my thing. So I think it's useful to know when this isn't my thing, or I'm out of my depth, or I'm overwhelmed. I literally can't do anything else. I need to hand it over and be okay with doing that.
Because you can actually start to hate your business. I remember my first year of business, when I got my accountant, I was like, yeah, I've got an accountant. And I thought it meant that they would take care of everything. They did to an extent, but it was the same thing, last minute. I honestly don't think I've ever been so stressed in business. It was in that first year of getting the accounts in. There's a book called The E-Myth. I think you know it, Michael Gerber, and he speaks about 3 different types of hats you wear as an entrepreneur. So one is the technician, so you're literally doing everything yourself, all of the groundwork, all of the technical things. The manager who manages the team, and then the entrepreneur who has all the outside the box thinking. And I was doing all. And in part of that book, he talks about a woman who's got an apple pie. She makes apple pies, great apple pies, and she just wants to give up because she's literally doing everything, where she's actually created not just one other job for herself, but 5 other jobs. So she's working more than she would have done in a 9 to 5. And for me anyway, I think the whole point of setting up a business is to, yes, it takes a lot of work, and yes, there's a lot of hours and groundwork, but to actually give yourself time to actually enjoy life as well. And so when it starts to become a burden, like you said, that's when you need help. That's when you need to call in the team.
That's when you need to be like, okay, let's start working. And it's being okay with, I know for me, kind of digressing, girl, I'm supposed to be moving on, but anyhow, I'm gonna say this. For me, it was being okay with letting go. Oh, girl, I would hire somebody and then I wouldn't want to give them anything. I remember.
Then you double check what they've done.
I had an assistant, and oh my gosh, poor chick, for the first few weeks, all she did was send me messages going, are you going to send me anything to do? I was just not very good at kind of going, okay, I trust you to do this. I almost wanted to package it up in a nice package with a bow and then send it over to her and just double check she was okay. And she was a smart woman. But I think, there's a bit of being okay with going, they're better at this than me, and just handing it over and getting that's going to get done really well. And you know what, even if they make a mistake, you ain't perfect, you were probably going to make a mistake at some point anyway.
Exactly.
So people sometimes make mistakes, it's just normal, but people don't tend to stick around if you're over their case all the time. So so we don't have like a two-week interview, because we could do that. Because you'd be saying lots of really good stuff, and I'm like, yeah, what she said, what Daniella said. What is it? So power comes from authenticity and this ability to let go as well, and know when you're out of your depth. So I'm now very curious, especially for somebody who didn't want to be a publisher, but then went on and decided, well, if you're not going to publish my book, not only am I going to publish a book, I'm going to teach everybody else how to publish books too. What is it? What would you say has been the source of your success? And what I mean by that is, if we were to take everything that you've done in your life and business and boil it down to just 3 things, I call them power tools, that have been absolutely pivotal to the success that you've had in life or in business, what would those 3 things be? Let's start with the first one.
Oh gosh, so tying into the last thing, I think the first thing is being authentic, having integrity, so knowing what your business values are as well as your personal values, and your boundaries within business as well, and knowing when to ask for help, which is part of stepping into your power. The second thing is determination. You can't be giving up at the first no. You give up at the first no, don't. Really important. Be determined. And number 3, have passion. If you don't love what you do, don't do it. You've got to love what you do. It's the backbone to everything.
I mean, I love what you say about passion, because I know, like, when I started this podcast, it would have been easy for me to do a podcast on speaking and running speaking businesses. And I do love that.
Yeah.
But I love a general chit chat much more than that. Like, I have a lot of interest.
It really does.
I have a lot of interests. And I was having lots of really fabulous, insightful, really deep and meaningful conversations with people. And I just thought, I'd love to have this more often and make these conversations available to people. So that's why I picked this, because I thought at least this is a topic I know I could do for years and not get bored. There's always going to be an interesting, powerful woman I'm going to want to understand. I'm going to want to unpick and kind of go, what? How did that happen? How did that work? And so I do wholeheartedly agree with you when it comes to passion and doing something that you love.
I can stand testament. Lovelda is probably one of the very few people I've had the longest conversations with.
It's a skill. It is.
It is a skill.
I have actually lost track of how many people are like, oh my God, I never stay on the phone that long. And I'm like, really? That's because you ain't never spoke to me before. I'm interested. I ask good questions. Okay, enough patting myself on the back. There's going to be people listening this far. Perhaps they've got a book idea where this is the moment where it's like, oh my gosh, like the universe is all like, everything's lined up. And there's now this woman who publishes books like the sort of book I really want to get out, who may be interested in connecting with you from that perspective. Or perhaps they've just been listening to the show, and at this point they're thinking, that Danny, because I don't want to mix her name up, that Danny sounds like my kind of chick. I really want to connect with her. What is the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, you can connect with me. My website is www.consciousdreamspublishing.com. I am on social media, Facebook and Instagram under consciousdreamspublishing.com. I'm also offering free 30-minute consultations, which you can book via the website.
Boom, boom, boom. Do you know what? I'm even going to put all the links in the show notes so that you can connect directly. So connect directly into Dani, whether it's that you want to talk to her about getting yourself published a book. Don't you have a Facebook? Oh, you're getting rid of that, aren't you? I'm going to shut my mouth. That's not staying.
I've got a Facebook. Oh, yeah. We'll be setting that up later.
Girl decided that she's not engaging in that way anymore. So you want to connect with her directly and figure out what's happening next, because I know there will definitely be a next. And if you've got a book that you're thinking of putting out and you want to have control of your voice and your tone, honestly, get in touch with Daniella. She's one of the best in the business when it comes to getting your message out there. We have spoken about so much. I mean, we have explored self. We have explored what it means to stand out. We've explored what it means to kind of go out there and really push against boundaries and have determination. If there was literally just one thing that we could leave our guests with today as parting words of wisdom, what would be your parting pearls of wisdom?
My parting words of wisdom would be, you are enough, before we say anything, first and foremost. So whatever it is, whatever dream you have on your heart, whether it's setting up that business, whether it's inventing that new invention, whether it's publishing that book, just go for it. Statistics in terms of publishing a book, 84% of people want to publish a book. Out of that 84, only 5 go on to fulfill their dream. That's 79% of stories lost, 79% of voices silenced, and 79% of books that will always be unread. So just don't let that be you. We have one life. With passion, determination, and authenticity, you can achieve whatever you want to without any limits.
Girl, I just got chills up my arm. I'm like, oh, what she said. Oh, girl. Okay, so connecting with Dani, that is all the links are in the show notes. I'm saying compassion, determination, authenticity, passion. Those are the 3 words I want you to really take away from today's show. If it's not a book, but it's speaking, and that's your thing, check out the notes. Like I said at the top end of this, I'm running, it's still probably, depending on when you're listening to this, because it might be closed, right? Depending on when you're listening to this, I'm running a LinkedIn profile intensive. Check out the links in the notes to find that out, and check us out on Instagram. At a minimum, make sure that you're subscribed to get the next installment. So until next time, remember, live authentically, be determined, and do what you're most passionate about. Daniella, thanks very much for joining us today. You've been listening to The Lovelda Show, Women of Power podcast. Until next time, Chicas. Ciao.
Bye.